Life is a series of choices. For Daniel, a young man from a small town, one choice would change everything. A scholarship to study abroad was his golden ticket, a chance to chase his dreams and build a future he could only imagine. But as he boarded the plane, leaving behind his family and everything familiar, he couldn't shake the feeling that this journey would come with a... Daniel arrived in a new world, a bustling city, a prestigious university, and a sea of unfamiliar faces. Overwhelmed but determined, he threw himself into his studies. It wasn't long before someone caught his eye. Emily, a lively and confident classmate who seemed to light up every room she entered. Their friendship began with a simple smile, but it would soon grow into something much deeper. As the days turned into weeks, Daniel and Emily grew closer. They spent hours studying together, exploring the city, and sharing stories about their lives. One evening, as they watched the sunset in a quiet park, Daniel realized he had fallen in love. For the first time in his life, he felt truly happy. But little did he know, their love would soon be tested by the weight of an impossible choice. Emily welcomed Daniel with open arms. They treated him like one of their own. And for a while, Daniel felt like he had found a second home. But as he sat at their dinner table, laughing and sharing stories, a nagging thought lingered in the back of his mind. His scholarship would end after graduation, and he would have to return home. As graduation approached, Daniel and Emily began to face the reality of their situation. Daniel's scholarship was coming to an end, and he would have to return to his home country. Emily, unwilling to let him go, promised to find a way to make it work. But deep down, Daniel knew the decision wouldn't be easy. Emily's family, who had grown fond of Daniel, were determined to help. They researched ways for him to stay in the country, student visas, job offers, even citizenship. But as the pressure mounted, Daniel began to feel torn. He loved Emily and the life they had built together, but he couldn't ignore the pull of his homeland and the family who had supported him every step of the way. One night, Daniel called his family back home. His mother's voice was a comforting reminder of the life he had left behind. She told him how proud they were of him, but reminded him not to forget where he came from. As he hung up the phone, Daniel felt the weight of his decision pressing down on him. Daniel knew he had to make a choice. In the end, he decided to return home, but saying goodbye to Emily was the hardest thing he had ever done. As they hugged at the airport, tears streaming down their faces, Daniel realized that sometimes love means letting go. As the plane took off, Daniel opened a letter Emily had given him. In it, she poured out her heart, telling him how much he meant to her and how she would always cherish their time together. Her words reminded him of the love they shared and the memories they would always carry home, carrying the memories of his time abroad and the love he left behind. Though their paths had diverged, both Daniel and Emily knew their story was far from over. Life had pulled them in different directions, but the love they shared remained a part of them both. And as Daniel looked at a photo of him and Emily, he realized that sometimes the hardest choices lead us to where we're meant to be. A year had passed since Daniel returned home. He had settled into a routine, working at a local company and helping his family. But despite the familiarity of his surroundings, a part of him still longed for the life he had left behind. The bustling city, the prestigious university, and most of all, Emily. Meanwhile, Emily had thrown herself into her career, trying to fill the void Daniel had left behind. She had moved into a small apartment in the city and was working at a top firm. But no matter how busy she was, she couldn't stop thinking about Daniel. One evening, as Daniel sat with his family, he received an unexpected email. It was an invitation to a global conference in the city where he had studied abroad. The conference would bring together professionals from around the world, and Daniel's work had caught the attention of the organizers. Daniel decided to attend the conference, hoping it would be a chance to reconnect with old colleagues and explore new opportunities. But as the plane touched down in the city, he couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. The bustling streets, the towering skyscrapers, and the familiar sights brought back memories of his time with Emily. The conference was everything Daniel had hoped for: inspiring speakers, thought-provoking discussions, and opportunities to network. But on the second day, as he stood in line at a coffee shop, he heard a voice that stopped him in his tracks. It was Emily. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the years melting away. Then, slowly, they began to talk, catching up on everything that had happened since they last saw each other. After the conference, Daniel and Emily spent hours talking, just like they used to. They walked through the city, visited their old haunts, and reminisced about the past. But as the sun set, they both realized that their connection had never truly faded. As the days passed, Daniel and Emily grew closer once again. But they both knew that their lives were on different paths. Daniel had responsibilities back home, and Emily had built a life in the city. They were faced with the same impossible choice they had encountered years ago. Emily's family, who had always supported her, offered a solution. They suggested that Daniel could explore remote work opportunities, allowing him to split his time between the city and his hometown. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. Daniel decided to take a leap of faith. He accepted a remote position with a company in the city, allowing him to balance his responsibilities at home with his desire to be closer to Emily. As he prepared to board his flight back home, he felt a sense of hope he hadn't felt in years. Daniel returned home, but this time everything felt different. He had a new sense of purpose and a plan for the future. And though he and Emily were still navigating the challenges of their relationship, they knew they were stronger together than apart.
Like, subscribe, and click on the post notification icon to be among the first to watch when we post a new video. See you all in the next